So we're here. We're gonna have a conversation with one of my best friends right now. Because we all go through phases, but she's my best friend right now. We got Sam Norman, and she's also well, not a hidden summit coach anymore. You just transitioned into what do you do right now?
There's, I don't think really a name for it.
That's the best
Um,
role.
yeah, I do a lot of content
Yeah.
things and then
So a lot of
some
social
side
media,
projects.
a lot of like the content that we create with like ebooks and stuff, all that pretty shit. That's Sam. She's got a talent for it.
Thank you. I'm
Oh yeah.
trying.
Great. Well, we're like I said, we're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna start with, well, first tell the people, Sam, like who are you? Like you're Sam Norman, but who are you?
That's a loaded question.
No, I know. I like to go deep real fast. Let's go.
I don't know. I feel like that's always like the hardest question to answer. I think like you said, like everybody kind of goes through seasons and phases, and I think that's still very true, just like personally through life. So, um, I'd like to like describe myself that way. Like I've gone through a lot of different seasons. But I am a mom. I have always been, not always, I learned to kind of channel all of those different things with a constant. And that constant for me was kind of fitness and learning how to take care of myself. Um, and being a jack of all trades, really. I like to learn a little bit of everything and
Mhm.
not really apply everything. But that's, I don't know how to really describe it other than that. That's like that's not a good description. But like that's really who I am right now is like still figuring it out, but I know that I like to learn.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of it. Like you said, we all go through different seasons, and the season that you're in right now is a season of growth and it's a season of trying to find out who you are and what you want to be. Is that kind of what you were going with?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
This is why I don't do podcasts. I'm gonna throw out a bunch of words and you can put it together.
that's fine because that's why I do podcasts so that I can hear all the words and put them together and articulate them so that you can better understand it and then the audience can too. But I know that you're going to add a ton of value just because I know you as a person and you're a good person. You're always trying to help people. That's why you were a coach and that's why you work with Hidden Summit because everybody on the Hidden Summit staff, they want to help people in some capacity and they have a really big heart. So let's start off with kind of how you got into fitness in the first place, because I know that that's been like a huge part of your life for a pretty long time.
Yeah, so I growing up was moved around a lot. Um not in like a military type way. That's usually the first question I get asked. Like we were not a military family. My dad
Was going to
just
ask
liked,
that question. I was like, are you a
yep.
military family?
No, we were not. My dad just liked to move. So every 18 months or so, we would pick up and go somewhere else. So I was like the perpetual new kid, and I never really made a lot of friends. Um, but like food was always there. Like I could
Yes.
always eat, right? And as a side note, like I'm a pretty tall person. I know that you can't tell on screen. That's one of the first things that everybody says to me when they meet me in real life. Like, I had no idea you were so tall. I'm really tall.
Yes, you are. I couldn't believe how tall you were because usually people are like, wow, I can't believe you're so tall, Caitlin, because I'm like 5'6.5". But then Sam's like over here making me look like a shrimp.
Right. So I'm 5'10" and I have been 5'10" since probably seventh grade. Um, so like I stood out anyways, being tall. And then I was also always the new kid. And then I was also really overweight. And I also had the really pretty popular sister. So it was just kind of a shitstorm for me
Yeah.
all around. Um, so I was just really uncomfortable with myself for a really long time. And I think it was pushed really hard, especially because you and I are pretty much the same age, but like when we were growing up, it was pushed super hard to be like, you don't eat carbs and like try this diet to lose as much weight as possible. And like 1,200 calories is just like a blanket statement. Everybody should have 1,200 calories to lose weight. So that's kind of where I went. When I was 16, I decided that I was not going to do school anymore because I was going into like my junior year and I was on my 13th different school at that point, and
Jeez.
I just didn't want to do it anymore. um,
I get it. Like I've only
yeah,
been because I was the new kid from seventh grade to eighth grade, like that last year, eighth grade, I was a new kid in a new state. And then we moved back to New York from North Carolina when I was a senior. So then again, I was the new kid. So I know how hard that could be just doing it twice, but doing it that many times and then also being somebody who wasn't necessarily comfortable in their own skin, I bet that that took a lot, out of you there.
yeah, yeah, that was difficult. So at that point, it was like my 13th school. I was like, I'm going to be the new kid again. Like, and at that point, my sister is the closest sibling I have in age. I have four older brothers, but she is only a year and a half older than me.
Mhm.
So it was very prevalent again. Like, she was very pretty and popular. Like, and then I showed up, and they're like,
I think you're pretty cool.
"Oh, thanks." At the time, it did not feel that way. Um, so I was like, you know what? Like, I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to go to another school. We had just moved back to California in a different city, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to do this again. So I went to online school, and I started working full time. So it gave me a lot of extra free time to go down that rabbit hole of like, how do I lose weight as fast as possible? Mind you,
Yes.
like I worked in an Italian restaurant, so like there was always food, and I love Italian food, which
Italian food
also
is
made it's amazing. It's the best.
so many carbs.
Um, yeah, exactly. Not a whole lot of protein, just a lot. Um, so my first kind of internet search brought me to like eat 800 calories. Like that's what they put obese people on. Like, and obviously it works. And I was like, okay, bet. So I started at 800 calories, and I would walk.
Hmm.
I didn't really work out, but I would walk for 4 to 5 hours every single day.
Damn.
Um, and then I would work the night shift at the restaurant. So from 4 to midnight or sometimes 2 a.m., I would be working at the restaurant, come home, sleep, wake up. I would eat as little as possible, do my schoolwork, walk, and then just repeat that over and over and over again. Um, so I lost probably 100 pounds in a very short amount of time.
I bet. I mean, 800 calories and like so much movement. I bet you
Yeah.
felt fantastic during that time.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I felt super great. And I was really nice to customers.
Oh,
So
I
that
bet.
helped
By
a
the
lot.
way, for all of those who don't understand, this is sarcasm. She felt terrible and was horrible to all the customers because she was so hangry.
Yeah, I was really hungry. You like sneak a piece of garlic bread,
Yeah,
like
it
a
doesn't.
garlic bite, as
Yeah.
you're going, and then everything's fine. Um, so I lost a lot of weight, and I finally felt I didn't feel good, but I
Mhm.
felt good about my body,
Right.
um, which was a really good feeling. And that kind of led into in that in between time, like as I had started to lose the weight and moving forward, I had gotten into a really abusive relationship. And I was traveling all the time to go see him back and forth. It was an 8 hour trip, and I would take the train and come back. And again, it was not healthy.
Hmm.
Um, but I felt good about my body. So I was trying to continue to chase that feeling. And like I was getting attention. And again, like I was 16 and I was like this big blob that nobody would ever talk to. And now I had a boyfriend, which is a whole other conversation, like where your mental health suffers. So now like you're more prone to be in an abusive relationship. Um, so it was really chaotic. And I'll spare you the rest of the details, but it was a good 3 years that I was in that phase of
Hmm.
eating 1,200 calories or less every day and walking just ridiculous amounts of hours and then working as much as possible because I had to not only fund my trips, but like I was not going to school. So I finished school early and then of course was like trying to find an apartment, which eventually I did. And again, there was just a lot of chaos. And at the end of it, I was my leanest. I think I weighed 140 pounds
Mhm.
um, at 5'10".
Jeez. And what did you
I,
start at? Do you remember?
what?
Do you remember what you started this journey at?
Jeez. It was over 200 pounds for sure.
Yeah.
It was, it was a lot. So I looked pretty unhealthy. Um, like my body was not healthy. My brain was certainly not healthy. My mental health was not healthy. Um, but I was still trying to feel good about the way that I looked, and I liked that I was thin. And that was kind of the same time that like bikini competitors became very popular on Instagram. And
Yes.
I
I
thought,
feel like we have such a similar story, and I didn't
yeah,
recognize how similar it was, but it really is, because then when I started seeing the bikini competitions and stuff, I was like, oh, they look really fucking shredded. I want to do that. And it almost gave me like an excuse to be like, I don't have an eating disorder. I'm just competing.
right? It's a completely different thing. Like I'm not eating not because like I want to starve, but like look at how good they look, right? So I what really drew me in was like they looked fucking jacked, and I was like, that's what I want.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. Um, so I had to do a lot of my own research.
Yes.
Um,
Google.
right? Like I never asked anybody, like I never asked anyone for help or did any actual like, how do you build muscle? I was like, okay, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Let me stalk. So I ended up getting like some weights and a bench from my brother,
Nice.
um, who was a Marine, and he did 2 tours. So he's like ripped, jacked. Could have very easily asked him. Never a word. Like, hey, do you have anything that I could use? Cool, I'm gonna take it. Um, but still eating very little food. I think at that time, like I had bumped it up to maybe like 1,500 calories on a good day.
Yeah. Hey,
Um,
progress is progress, right?
right, yeah. But again, for me, as tall as I am,
Yeah, that's nowhere near.
um, it's not enough. So that's kind of when I started to lean into actual fitness and like I am very much one of those people that's, if I'm going to do something, then I want to do it really well. I'm going to do it to the extreme,
Yeah.
right? Which is what leads into an eating disorder and then walking all the time. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to get strong. Like, how do I get strong? And that's kind of really where it started. Um, but I was really afraid to eat. So I
Mhm.
stayed there for probably another 3 years before I was like, okay, I need to actually figure it out. And that's when I got again to like, okay, I'm going to become a trainer. Like, I'm going to get into coaching because people were asking for my help because I looked good.
Yeah.
I was not doing it correctly. But I looked good enough that people were asking for my help. So I was like, okay, let's do that. And it's just kind of gone from there. The more that you learn, like the more interesting it was to me, and the better that I wanted to do. And that's kind of how everything has progressed.
Yeah. So you got into fitness, like how old were you when you got the bench and the weights from your brother? Because you were
Um,
16 when you were like the blob, like you said, which I would never
right.
call you a blob, but I'm just going off your words.
Yeah. So I got the bench probably when I moved back home after the abusive relationship ended,
Mhm.
and I moved back home. Actually, I got married at 19, and that's when that started.
Oh, by the way, she got married too. Yeah, she did
I
all these things.
did.
Yes.
I did.
So around
Yep.
19 is when you really started to be like, all right, I'm gonna get stronger now.
Yeah.
And you were really still struggling with the food aspect of it.
Yes.
Yep. And I find that that's where most females end up. And, I think we all have done it the wrong way in the past. Where like media tells us one thing where, hey, we want to be smaller, we need to be skinnier, we need to take up less space. And the logical thing would be like, hey, I'm just going to eat more, or I'm sorry, eat less and move a shit ton more, without actually thinking, okay, well, if you want to build muscle, one, you have to strength train, and two, you have to actually fuel the muscle, because
Hmm.
without fuel, you can't build muscle from nothing. So then so many females find themselves caught in this cycle where then they have such a terrible relationship with food that it impacts them long term. And this is kind of where you're at right in this position.
Yep. Yeah. So that's kind of where that transition happened. Learning more about, like you said, having to fuel your body and having to build the muscle, and then that took more food. But still that fear of like having to eat more food stopped me for a really long time.
Same. It still stops me.
Right. Yep.
Eric, Eric's our coach. So Eric's Sam's coach, Eric's my coach. And we'll talk about how she got into that shit show. No, Eric's amazing. Eric makes us better. That's why we love Eric. But, still to this day, he'll be like, your workout was tougher. You don't feel recovered. Cool. Just eat more carbs. And I'm like, but my macros say this. How can I eat more than that number? So we still both have that struggle, because I know too, because I do Sam's nutrition. So I know
that's fun fact. Like Caitlin also does my nutrition, so she knows exactly what I'm talking about when I'm like, I don't want to eat more food.
Yeah, definitely. But I know that it's important to keep pushing it a little bit because you have a goal. And how did you start to so personal trainer now, you're trying to become one. How did you get into that? So like, why did you want to become a personal trainer? I guess number one, was it just because you really loved the aspect of fitness, or was it more you wanted to learn for yourself?
It was a little bit of both. Like I said, people had kind of started asking for my help. And it was one of those things that at the time, because at this point, it's like I was 21, I think, when I started training. So at that point, I had been working in a restaurant for 8 years, and not the same one, but in the restaurant industry for 8 years, right? Knowing that as much as I loved it at the time, I was an operations manager for that Italian restaurant. Um, as much as I loved it, I knew that I could not do that forever.
Yeah. It's hard working in that kind of an industry.
It really is. Like if you want to see like some of the kindest, most patient, most loving, funniest people who look 37 years older than they actually are, go to the back of house in a restaurant. That's where those people are. So I was like, I can't do that forever. And I knew that like at this point, fitness was going to be a constant in my life, no matter what I did. So it was kind of a thought of like, I'm going to be doing this anyways.
Yeah.
Why not turn it into a career?
Yeah. How can you help other people too do what you want to do?
Yeah.
Cool. So did you get like a certification, or did you just start giving out advice? Like, where did that all go?
It started, and it's still terrible to think about this. It started like with Beachbody, like,
oh, same.
Like, right? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like I can do this. And it very quickly was like, okay, well, this is not it.
Yeah, this is a scam.
Yeah. But again, it gives you that it plants that seed of like, I can still help people. I can still do this in a better way. So it was shortly after that that I got my certified personal trainer cert from NASM. And I think it was around that same time that I got with First Form, and that was right when their app came out. So I could start to coach people in the app, and that was really like the beginning of coaching for me.
Yeah, I mean, the app was literally, when they came out with that app, I was like, game changer, boom. Now we can actually help people like with technology instead of just being like, here are your calories and macros, go to MyFitnessPal, download that. I can't see anything that you're doing, but I'll trust you. You can send me screenshots if you want. And then it's like, I don't know why people aren't getting results. Oh, wait, nobody's actually following the plans that you're sending them. I get it.
Yeah. Like they can say that they are, but we can't see anything. So that was really like my first like foot in the door, so to say, for coaching.
Yeah. How did you find First Form, by the way? I always love to hear people's stories of how they came about it.
I don't know, honestly.
Yeah. Like
it was just
a thing.
Yeah, it was Laura, one of the athletes. I can't think of her last name now.
Novotny, or I think that was her last name, possibly not her last name anymore. Because
I don't know. She's married and she has 2 babies now. Can't think of her name. I don't even know if I follow her anymore. But it was one of her posts years and years ago, and it was talking about one of the challenges. So I signed up for a challenge before the app came out. And then was like, okay, cool, I can do this.
Yeah. So I love these first form challenges. I hate fucking 8-week challenges. I do. But I like the first form challenges because they make it a point that it's like, hey, this isn't going to be like the end all be all for you. The purpose of this challenge is to give you an excuse to actually start. So that way you can build the habits and behaviors that last you a lifetime, instead of being like, hey, you're going to lose all the weight in 90 days. No, you're fucking not. Not going to happen. It's not like a sick promise, like a lot of stuff that you see on social media or in the media these days. Like, we're focused on getting you to a goal using habits and behaviors. And that's through a app, but also what we do with Hidden Summit, which we'll get into. But so you're coaching people in the first form app. You did a challenge in the first form app, and you're helping people that way. Are you also coaching people in person, or is it just all online at this point?
No, it was all online. At the time, I was living right outside of Palmdale, California, in a very small town. So I had the option to go and coach people in person, but Abel was really little at the time. And I was not ready to not be home with him, which is actually how I ended up getting into another online coaching job, which I won't say the name, but it was awful. I stayed there for a very long time. But they had their own app.
A very long time.
It was like 4 years.
Oh, that is a very long time.
Yeah. And again, this is fast forward a little bit. I think I was 24, maybe.
Yeah.
23, 24 when I got there. But still, I did not want anybody to have to watch Abel. I didn't want to have to go and coach in person and not be with him. So I found this, and it was, again, it was subpar. I'll say that.
Subpar.
But I was still, that's when I really started coaching people. And because of the structure, I was coaching anywhere from 30 to 50 people through that app at a time, while coaching people in the first form app that were separate. So it was a lot of online coaching.
Yeah, a lot of people, but I'm sure that it gave you a lot of different experience working with so many different types of people and all at once too.
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. So then how long you coached there for 4 years, and then what happened? Why did you leave? You don't need to say any names, but I'll ask you after this. But tell me about how that transpired.
So, like I said, I had been there for a really long time, working with a lot of people. And like, because you've coached so many people in person, as a going rate for an in-person trainer is what, $30 to $50 per hour?
Depends.
Per session.
Yeah. So like for me, I got completely robbed when I worked at, I'll say the name, Crunch. And I was $130 a session. However, I got paid like $20.
Yeah. Okay.
Love it. I love the percentage.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Then you will understand. So I was getting anywhere between $30 to $50 per client for the month.
Holy crap. You were robbed too.
Yeah. While doing all of their macros, helping them with their meal plans, writing out their programming for them, while also doing check-in calls and daily text. So
wow. So you were spread so thin, but you also weren't making anything to really help you and find that this is valuable. Because at the end of the day, yes, we want to help people, but we also need to feed our families and feed out the life that we want to build too. It's like, you're not going to hire a plumber and expect them to do a service for free. Same thing with a coach. If you want a good coach, you need to pay and invest in it.
Right. So I was really burnt out. And on top of that, I do this, and I know for a fact that you do this too. A lot of coaching is mental warfare for the coach, especially when you take so much of other people's success and you take it personally when they don't succeed.
Yes, that's one of the hardest parts about coaching, is because half the time I feel like I'm a therapist, and then when you have so many clients and some of them aren't ready to fully commit, and they're not fully committing, and you're beating yourself up as to like, why can't I get this person to succeed? I want them to succeed so bad. And it's almost like it's the nature of the beast. And I was talking to Dara the other day about this. It's like, You're going to have clients that leave you. You're going to have clients that aren't as successful as you want them to be. But as long as you can have the people who really are ready to commit to go all in and succeed, that's what matters.
Mm-hmm. So that was a lot of it for me too. Because I had such a big load of clients, I felt like I wasn't able to give everything to every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So there was that, and that I was burnt out, and that I wasn't making enough money. And on top of that, I was taking all of the clients that were not succeeding extra personally, because not only are they not succeeding, but I can't give any of my extra time because I don't have the bandwidth or the time in the day to give to them.
Yeah. There are some times when I'll
Um,
get calls for like, I'll go through like 4 or 5 calls in a row and I'll have to like go outside for a walk because it's
yeah.
like, I just need to process what happened over the last 2 hours.
Yeah, it's a lot. It really is. A lot of coaching is just being a therapist and listening, because you don't realize so many people are so lonely
Mm-hmm.
and or don't have anyone to talk about what's really happening inside their brain.
Yeah.
And that's a
That's,
huge aspect of coaching.
yep, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like, that's why like coaching is so important. And if you're a coach and you're listening to this, like, it's more than just helping them with their physique and helping them with their health. It's about helping them with their mental health and their confidence and their ability to thrive in all areas of their life.
Yeah. So it got to a full on like mental breakdown point where I just like stopped responding to people in general. Um, and I talked to my coach manager at the time. And it was very abrupt. I did not do it the right way. I will say that, like, first and foremost. I came to her one day and I was like, hey, I'm done. Take my clients. Bye. Which I'm still really not proud of, because I left a lot of people in the dark. And I was able to send out an email like, hey, I'm going to head out. Like, you're going to be amazing with your new coach. I'm going to miss all of you. Um, but it was just like, I'm done. I have to go. Please take my clients. Um, so at that point, I was like, I'm just like, I'm going to take a sabbatical. Like, I'm going to step away. And then I got really angry about it because, again, I had spent so many years with so many clients. And I was like, I have absolutely nothing to show for this. And
Yeah.
I thought, like, there is not any other company that is really doing online coaching that I can apply to, or that I can do the same thing. I seriously thought that was never going to happen again. I was like, okay, now what am I going to do? So I took a lot of like side jobs. I worked at the school, which I absolutely loved. Um, that's another one of those, like, that's a job that really pulls at your heartstrings. Um, because I loved being in the school. I worked at the high school specifically. So it's really at that age where they're old enough to understand their feelings and emotions, but they're young enough to where you can still kind of guide them and
Mm-hmm.
like use those coaching skills
Yep.
to, like, growth mindset. Like, this is how you need to react. Like, don't let these things bother you. Think about this way. So it was really great for me specifically, like working in the special ed department, to be able to help them work through those emotions. Um, which is why, like, I was such a great candidate to be a para for the school, because I had those coaching abilities to basically coach them through the day and work through those behaviors and still get to the other side. Um, so I really loved my job at the school. However, it was another one of those very much like, you're going to give 300%. And at the end of the day, you are lucky to get 5 back.
Yeah. You were giving so much to everybody and everything around you, and you were giving nothing to you.
Yeah. And I mean, we would have really great days. Um, to see one of those kids succeed or to have a win, it's like when a client has a win, like, it fills your heart for sure. But those days are very far and few between.
Mm-hmm.
And the bad days are the worst kind of days.
Yeah.
So I ended up not staying with the school, not coming back for the next school year. And just was flat broke and I was depressed and I was like, I am like, should I go back to coaching? Like, I don't know if I can ever do that again, especially after being at school, but like I need to make money, trying all of these other things. And I was like, nothing was really panning out. And that's when I kind of stumbled across um, Kevin's post on Instagram that he was looking for coaches. And I had heard of Hidden Summit before only because I followed Kevin because he's a first form athlete.
Yeah.
That's
like
the only reason.
The only reason so many people have heard of Hidden Summit. There are so many people who are just like, Hidden Summit, and then I'm like, you know, Kevin, he's a first form athlete, and they're like, oh yeah, I know Kevin.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I know Hidden Summit. It's like, okay, yeah, it all kind of pans together. So shout out to first form for doing that for us.
Right, yeah. So I followed Kevin because of first form. And I think during my time off, like those few months, it was a good 6 months that I had just taken off. I had a lot of time on my phone. So he was popping up more and more. And I think I had commented on one of his posts something stupid. So he was popping up more and more and more.
Yep. That algorithm gotcha.
Exactly. It did. It really did. Everything happens for a reason. So he popped up and he was looking for coaches. And again, like I said, I knew he had tracks at that point. I thought that's all that he had.
Yeah.
But he said that he was looking for coaches. And I had a split moment where I was like, do I really want to coach again? Like, I'm broke and I know that I can. And I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to apply. Like, there's no fucking way Kevin fucking Valance is going to call me and ask me to coach for him.
But then he did.
And the next day, he texted me. And I'll be honest, like, he texted me and I didn't get the message. So it was a good 5 hours later that I actually responded. And at that moment, for the second time, I was like, holy shit, he texted me, he wants to have a call. And then that immediate next second, I was like, I made this man wait 5 hours. He's not going to fucking take a call.
That is so you. Immediately gets excited, then immediately says, oh, I fucked up. What
right? That's exactly. So I texted him back and I was like, I am so sorry. I didn't see this. And at the end of the message, again, if you've ever read a message from Kevin, like, it's very straightforward. Like, he tells you information and that's it. Where if you've ever texted me, I am not. Like, I will tell you, you can feel it through the text, the emotion that I have. So I was like, holy shit, I'm so sorry. He asked at the end, like, what the times were that we could talk, and I told him the times. And I think he just sent me like a thumbs up back. And I was like, oh, I'm fucked. Like, he's being polite to have a conversation with me to tell me to fuck off.
So let me add on to that. When Kevin was my coach, because he was my coach for 2 years before I became a coach at Hidden Summit, and there would be times where he would like just message me a thumbs up, and I'd be like, oh my god, what did I do to Kevin? Why is he mad at me?
Yeah. Because we're very like emotional texters. We're not so much, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that was my thought. I was like, he's gonna get on a call with me to be polite and then just tell me to fuck off.
Just like that, so, just say fuck off.
Right, exactly. Just get out of here. We're done. So the next day we had a call. And another thing I'm sure that everybody knows about Kevin is that he has a way of saying things or asking questions that just fucking break you.
Oh, they pull
like
you.
Whatever.
They pull you hard.
Yes.
Man, the amount
whatever wall you've got, gone.
Yep.
Just fucking gone. So we had our first call, and it was very much like a normal interview until he started asking more questions. And I fucking broke. It was like, I'm like depressed. I stopped coaching because I was so burnt out. I don't have any fucking money. I was like, I know that I want to help people. I know that I'm capable of helping people. But right now, I feel like shit. And he said, okay, well, this was a really great call. And I think I'm ready to have you come on. And I'm like, oh, fuck.
Unexpected.
Yeah. But crying still. And I don't know if he knew that I was crying. Like, I was trying really hard to be quiet about it.
He totally
Right. Always. Um, but that was it. That later that day, I got on a call with Liz. Um, and it was the next week that I started coaching. And that was last year, September 24th, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've been a coach for just over a year now.
Yeah.
It's crazy how that happens.
Yeah.
So I started as a coach. I was like the first round of coaches they brought on. Like, I guess the only people who were really there at the time were Kevin, Katie, and Eric, and obviously Derek, and Justin. So I was like with the first round of coaches that brought in. And I remember like we all got on a call and I like almost threw up on the interview because I was so nervous. But
Right.
the way that Kevin got to me is because I was his client. And there was one day on our call, it was like at the end of our call, he was like, "Oh, before you go, I wanted to offer you a job as a coach." And I was just like, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do." So exciting.
Yeah.
So I know how exciting that was, but like you didn't really know too much about Hidden Summit other than the fact that like Kevin was involved and we were coaching people.
Yeah. So again, I think I am one of the very few on the team that came on to work for Hidden Summit without ever being a client
Yeah.
first. Um, so I came in pretty blind, but again, I knew how online coaching worked. If anything, that was my strong point because I had only ever coached online.
That's true.
But again, not knowing anything about Hidden Summit and just knowing Cabin, and Katie, like you said, that was it.
Yeah. So then you become a coach at Hidden Summit, and what happens now? What have you learned throughout the last year? Holy shit, loaded question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you will never find a group of more dedicated people, um, more driven people. I'm not going to get emotional.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm not. Shut up. Um, um, like, like I said, I never really grew up with a lot of friends. I never really had a circle of people. Um, but this group of people really give a shit.
Yeah, they
Not
do.
just about like the important things, but they really give a shit about you as a person.
Mhm.
And they are completely unwilling to let you falter or to let you stay somewhere when they know you could be better.
Yeah. And that's the
It,
that's the most powerful part of this community. Like it's more than just like health and fitness.
yeah, it has been the most uncomfortable year of my life.
Which means it's been the best year of your life.
It has because I've been continuously pushed. But who I am right now, not that I'm anywhere near done, but who I am right now and the things that I get to do every day, like me 18 months ago would not fucking believe.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's kind of like, the other day I was talking on my story about like setting impossible goals and how like a year ago, 2 years ago, I bet that you've done something in that period of time that you once thought was impossible. And I think that for you, especially like hearing that, I think over the last 12 months, you've probably done a shit ton of things that you once thought were impossible.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So how did Sam and I become friends? Well, because I know everybody's thinking that. So my first interaction that I remember with Sam was obviously she was just like thrown into like the coaching chat, and I was like, okay, Sam, Sam, I got you. So there's a Sam in our group now. And then your face was on the coaching calls. But like the first thing I remember is like you messaged me one day and you were like, I have these vegan power pro bars and I don't like them, but I know you like them. Do you want them? First of all, I still haven't gotten these vegan power pro bars.
I know. I was just thinking that the other day because you want to know why? They're still in my fucking pantry.
Oh, they're bad now, girl. Throw those out.
That's why I don't eat them. I don't want to eat them. And I keep thinking like I should send those to Caitlin. And then the other day I was like, not good anymore.
Yeah, they're probably expired at this point. But that was like my first interaction with Sam was like, hey, this random person. And at the time, I didn't like put two and two together. I was like, who the fuck is this? And then I was like, oh, that's that person.
Yeah,
So
because you
that's
used
my
to post
first.
them all the time on your stories, and I was like, nobody else eats these.
Yeah. I don't eat them as much anymore. I only eat them when it's like we're traveling because, whole
Mhm.
food more. I am now eating chicken thighs instead.
There you go.
Yeah. So that was my first interaction with you. And then we started talking a lot more. And then we met face to face in Arizona at Coaching Con. And then, we
Mhm.
fell in love from there. So,
Yeah, pretty much.
and would you remember like kind of your first interaction with me? Like, was it the same? I always like to like
Yeah.
ask people because I put something on my story last night where it's like, all of my friends say the same thing. I first thought you were a bitch when I met you. And
No, so for
I loved
me,
it.
it was I had completely forgotten about the Vegan Power Pro bars. For me, I remember watching your stories um with your fat cat because he was high.
Oh
And I
my
was
God.
like, oh my God, I love to make
I
my fat
remember
cat
that.
high too.
I remember that too. That was like shortly after. That's when we actually really started talking and really
Yes.
our conversations were just sending fat cat reels back and forth.
Yeah. So it was like cats on catnip. Like that for me is what started it.
It's funny. Yeah, and then we just started to be like, okay, so she has a good sense of humor. And there was one day, I don't know what, but we were just talking and I sent her my workout that I was going to do that Eric had programmed for me. And it was a terrible workout. It was a chipper. I can't remember, but it started with a 100-calorie row and it finished with a 100-cal row. It was like 100-cal row. I think it was 80 GHDs, 60 box jump overs, 40
40
power
power cleans
and then 20 burpee pull-ups. And then you
and
rest
then repeat.
and you rested for like 5 minutes and then you repeated it backwards.
And
And
that's what it was. That's what fucking got it. It's like
the
looking at it, I was
backwards.
like, oh, that's not so bad. And then at the same time, we were like, fucking rest and repeat backwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, okay, I can knock that out. And then it's like rest and then think about how terrible it's going to feel going back up.
Yep. That's
So I
exactly
sent you
what it
that
was. It was
workout.
awful.
I sent you the workout and you're like, I kind of want to do this. And I was like, oh, well, you can't say that to me and then not do it. So I'm going to hold you accountable. We're going to do it together. And that is the birth of Shit Show Saturday.
And I absolutely died.
It was a
It was
shit show.
so bad. It was so, and they've progressively gotten better, not because the workouts are so much easier. Like that, okay, that was a really hard workout.
Yeah, it was.
The workouts have gotten slightly easier than that particular workout. But because we've continued to do it every week, and then Eric started doing my programming, I have been able to not die as much. Not that
And
I
that's
haven't died,
oh yeah, we
just
all
not as much.
die. But it's like you look back and you're like, wow, this workout, I wouldn't have actually been able to do it. And now I
Yeah,
can actually get through it. And I still feel like I'm going to die, but I can get through it.
exactly. Shit
Yeah.
show
So
Saturday.
that's how Shit Show Saturday was born. And that's how Sam eventually decided, you know what? I'm going to get coached by Eric too, because he's an incredible human being in all ways. Like he cares more than most people I know.
Yeah,
And he'll push you so fucking hard and allow you to find a limit that you didn't even know was there.
exactly. And look at us now. Look at how strong we are.
Yeah, right? God, I hate getting stronger. I have to lift heavier weights and then I die. It's terrible.
Exactly. Yeah.
But now you're here. You just transitioned from coaching into more of like the content creation and being more of a creative on the team. So what's next for you, not just career-wise, but also like personally? Do you know?
I don't. I have ideas. Um, I really love what I do.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't love coaching. Um, but again, this is getting to utilize some skills that I always had but never really put to work. Um, and for me, it's all about like not just making Hidden Summit look good, but being able to bring more people in um, and get more eyes on what we have because what we have is incredible.
Yeah, I agree.
But it doesn't matter if nobody gets to see that.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to kind of push that out and bring more people in is really important and it's exciting to me. So my main goal right now is just to be better at what I am doing so that Hidden Summit can be better as a whole.
Yeah. And you're doing a really good job of it and you're going to continue to grow with it. I know it. So I'm excited for the future there because Hidden Summit is going to Hidden Summit's going to change the world. And for those of you who are hearing about Hidden Summit for the first time, or that you've heard of it a couple times on the podcast, but you're not really sure what it is, like the free Facebook community, it's free. And the link is always in the description of the podcast. So go ahead and join, because there's always room at our table, and we want you to be able to get better with us, So
Yeah.
I'll put Sam's information in the description too, so you can give her a follow on all of her social medias, because keep up with Sam Norman. And if you see the Hidden Summit content, then you already see Sam.
Yeah.
But is there anything else that you want to say before we wrap things up?
No, I probably should have thought of that beforehand, because I knew that you were going to ask that. And
Yeah, it's just like a thing, right? But that's
it
okay.
is, it's a thing.
I think the biggest takeaway here is that, like, in life, you're going to have a whole lot of ups and downs. You're going to hit rock bottom more times than you'd like to admit. But as long as you don't stop fighting and you continue to chase your mission, your vision, and your purpose in life, you'll be okay.
Yeah. And I think it's important to find people that make you want to be better. Because if nothing else, that's what Hidden Summit does. Like, not just for me, it did that for me. But I think for anybody that comes in, this is a place where you are not allowed to settle.
Damn right. And we always get better together. So
yes,
let's go out and do one thing that's going to take you one step closer to where you want to be.